Yes.
10.
Hello and welcome to the first of our English language sessions from 2023. Before handing over to Daniela Silva, who will be hosting this particular session, I'd like to say a few words of welcome. Looking forward to what is going to be hopefully a very exciting year ahead of us. We have got some interesting plans in place. We start off with another language session, Polish, which will be happening in the next few weeks. And we're planning to consolidate many of our talks into a series of courses so that they're very accessible and more structured in the way that they operate. Already we have our doctoral consortium sessions arranged in courses, and the plan is for that, so we build upon this so it becomes more accessible and useful in terms of the material that we are generating. There will, of course, be another doctoral consortium series coming up in the next few weeks in the semester, where we're looking at architecture and philosophy, and we will continue, of course, our other language sessions. So today we are touching on fashion, which is one of the kind of key issues that is emerging, partly because of the amount of AI-generated work that has been looking at fashion just recently. And I'm very excited to see some young talent being presenting their work. The young talent is the future, as it were, of architecture today. So I'd like to hand over to Daniela and welcome you all to what is going to be, I think, an even more exciting and interesting year ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our talk on digital fashion design. As Neil said, is the first event of 2023 of Digital Futures. My name is Daniela. I'm an architect and researcher from Portugal. And today's talk will cover innovative methods for the fashion industry, such as 3D printing, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, digital manufacturing, and biomaterials. And it's with the purpose of bringing the craft of clothing forward. I take this chance to talk a little bit about the coming events. So on the 21st of January, we will have a talk on Sigradi post-conference with selected papers. And later on the 28th of January, a tutorial about introducing to ML agents in Unity and environmental on Anaconda. Also, we have ongoing the open call for presentations on NFT architecture. So I invite all the interested in submitting. Submissions are open until January 23. So visit our social media account so you can have access to the submission form. And of course, our Discord channel, where you can meet the rest of the Digital Futures team and join our community. And moving on to today's talk, we will have 6 presentations, and we will have a debate at the end. So I will invite you all to stay until the end to join this conversation. And it is our pleasure to have these amazing speakers that I take this chance to thank them for their time and effort. And they will share their work, and I will start with a quick introduction of each of them. So first we will have Haneen. She's a mixed media artist and multidisciplinary designer with an architectural background. Petra, She is a Slovak designer exploring the boundaries of digital manufacturing and material innovation. Ganit is a 3D fashion designer specializing in the development of smart fabric systems. Siyun is an interdisciplinary fashion designer, artist, and visiting lecturer based in Beijing. Luis is a Peruvian artist with an architecture studies teacher, researcher, and designer in polymorphic media from technology, science, and arts. And also Maritza. She is an architect at PLP Architecture. She has several years of experience working at UK architecture studios. At the end of as I said, there'll be a time for a quick discussion at the end. And this is just a couple of questions we would like to challenge everybody to think about and discuss it at the end of the presentations. I'm sure that many more questions will come out during the presentation. So first, what kind of future can we envision in the fashion industry? What has been the main contribution of technology for fashion? And can we look forward to wearing clothes that are alive? So with this being said, I would like to invite Haneen to open the talk with her presentation.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you for the introduction. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, so, well, my name is Haneen Jaafreh. I'm a Palestinian, Jordanian mixed media artist and multidisciplinary designer. My work and explorations are an intersection between art and technology, combining versatile techniques from 3D printing to biomaterials, parametric design, etc. I have strong passion into a wide variety of territories, including textile innovations, fashion wearables, and artist installations that can be sustained or recycled. Today, I wanted to walk with you through a very dear project of mine called Cocoon. Maybe it will be an inspiration for someone else for their own project. It's a project that I was able to do within my studies with Fabricademy, with my mentors, Claudia Simonelli and Marina Castan. It's a very dear project because of the concept. It's a manifestation of self-love and the journey within. So it all started with the self-love crisis. We live in a very materialistic world where we look for love in the wrong place. And if we look at the statistics of how women perceive themselves, it's quite alarming. So I wanted to be part of this movement and raise awareness about this issue. So as I said, it was an experimental project, and therefore it wasn't clear what the end result will be, but I knew that it would be a theatrical piece that is made of consists of two pieces of garments, the cocoon shell and true skin. The cocoon shell representing the false perception, the stigmas, the roles taken by society, and at one point it will be taken off to show the true skin, which is a statement that we are more than a body, and to celebrate diversity and celebrate our imperfections. So as any design, it starts off many hand sketches and digital designs. And at this point, I knew it's going to be a collapsible piece, that at one end, you will let it go to show the transition of the self-love journey we all go through. So again, it went into many prototypes, whatever I can get my hands on, and ended up with a 3D printing prototype of a small-scale design, parametric design, that is inspired by origami. So I'm trying to turn a 2D design into a spatial one. And through using Rhino and Grasshopper, I was able to create a parametric design that I can adjust based on how the 3D printing is behaving. And since it's a collapsible piece, this is where the research of the collapsing mechanism. And after many trials and errors, I ended up designing shoulder pieces that fit the body and yet create a track for these large 3D pieces to move around. We're talking about pieces that are around 90 centimeters in diameter, so they're quite big and challenging to print since they're very thin. And you can see here the transition in prototyping from the small scale to the middle to the collapsing mechanism. And you see how the end result literally represents what a cocoon is in its collapsing and looks. Now, the pieces themselves, since they're made of very thin lines, they had a lot of movement. And therefore, I needed to control them a bit, which I did using some epoxy composition on the sides of them and creating the space I was looking for. And this is the final piece with different colors from the outside and the inside, showing how we perceive ourselves differently than how the world perceives us. And at the end, the whole thing was a collaboration production of a performance that shows the whole journey we all go through at one point in our lives. Now, once you take off the cocoon shell, we end up with the true skin, which is a statement that we are more than a body. And again, we have the prototypes and the trials, where it ended up having the concept of goosebumps, which is our skin's way of communicating and expressing itself. Another parametric design where pieces are placed based on energy. The catsuit itself went into trials of biodyeing to match the performer's skin tone. And I was inspired by the work of Angelica Das, a Brazilian photographer, a brilliant one, who takes photographs of people she meets wherever she goes and then matches their skin tone to a Pantone color. I was really inspired and tried to mimic that in my project by using as many different tones as I can produce, which was silicone pieces casted in 3D printed molds that are textured. And the end result looks something like this. You can see some of the final video of the performance, which you can take a look at my YouTube channel later on. So as you see, it's a very personal project that I wanted you to go through to see how it can go from concept to a final end. Of course, I have other projects that I would like to just give a glimpse of. And this is a current project called Mesophotica, inspired by the corals. And you can see the parametric designs on Blender and how it's going to be a glowing, color-changing interactive piece based on data visualization of the bleaching effects of corals. And this is a glimpse of the designing process that I'm going through at this time. And this is some of the prototyping, testing how the pieces are going to behave, 3D printing on fabric, as you can see here. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to hear the rest of the amazing speakers, and thank you for the invite.
Thank you, Haneen. Amazing presentation and beautiful work. So next, I would like to invite Petra. As I said, she's a Slovak designer exploring the boundaries of digital manufacturing and material innovation. And over the past years of her architectural studies at the AAD in Prague, she has encountered different perspectives of architectural thinking and the better understanding of materials, new technologies, and their artistic applications led her to Fabricademy. Moreover, she was part of the She Makes, EU as an ambassador between Fab Lab Barcelona and Textile Lab Iceland, working on the project Rethinking Wool. Currently, she's working in Fab Lab Barcelona as a Fabricademy local instructor and lab assistant. Moreover, she is a co-founder of P2.lab, an experimental design platform. So Petra, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you. I will share my screen. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you very much for a nice introduction and for having me here today. My name is Petra Garajová, and I'm going to present you today a little bit our project, our experimental design platform, and a couple of projects that I've been working on the last 2 or 3 years. So I am a Slovak designer. I have background in architecture, although last year I also graduated from Fabricademy, and currently I am working in Fab Lab Barcelona as a Fabricademy local instructor. And besides that, me and my colleague, Petra Sochurková, we co-founded this experimental design platform and laboratory. It's called P2 Lab, and it's experimenting on the edge between fashion, textiles, soft materials, and new technologies. We share the same name, but we also we share the same interest in answering questions through design processes. So the laboratory holds and connects together designers, makers, and artists from different fields, and we collaborate together to create unique projects I will show you now. But at the same time, we are trying to be more focused on material research and just to find a way how to implement or how to experiment with the new materials. And then speaking about different technologies, the first collection, it's called Space-Time Collection, and it started during the pandemic situation. It combines knitwear and generative design. So in this case, we collaborated with a very small factory in Czech, and we were trying to connect the knitwear fabrication process with generative design. So as you can see, all those lines are generated, and they come from very simple chain pattern, but they are inspired of different perception of a space. So it means that it will create kind of optical illusion, creating space. And in this case, there were 2 layers fabricated, one in a black and then in a white color. So you will see a different perception or the visual approach of the garment. Of course, before fabricating it, we design it in a Cloud 3D to kind of adjust it or to customize it. And then the research itself, as you can see in the first picture, started from a very simple chain pattern that we were trying to kind of deform or deconstruct and adapt it for the 3D printing. So here in the last picture, there is a generated, like kind of adapted the pattern, because it depends what kind of technology are you using. And once you stretch it, it will create like a very 3D object. According to that, then was created this 3D object. I like to call it a wearable object because it's something at the intersection of jewelry and the garment. So it's basically fabricated with digital manufacturing. So it's 3D printed onto fabric. And in this case, we try to do it more accessible. So it consists of 18 pieces and for the fabrication, we used a very simple desktop 3D printer. And as before, we try to first to simulate it to see the overlapping of the patterns and what kind of illusion it will create. But talking about this, it's still in a visual a visual perception. So another step was to bring some kind of quality into the project using digital prototyping and generative design. And in this case, we collaborated with a fashion designer, Teresa Chytilova, on this mechanical embroidery combined with generative design. So it was all generated by software, specifically in Grasshopper, and then it was adapted on your face. So then you can adjust the pattern according to the fabric, your breathability. So it will cover only the parts that are necessary to cover. And then very similar to knitting, knitting techniques or embroidery, there is also digital weaving machine. So thanks to the SheMakes project, I got an opportunity to go to the Icelandic Center and work on these prototypes that kind of, I was trying to combine the different patterns as was before, but adapting it for another technology. And this was the first prototype of a kimono. So it's a very simple rectangle shape that is then connected, and it will create a very simple pattern, but still with this kind of illusion and the different perspective way of it. Last but not least, jumping from woven textile into non-woven, this was a Fabricademy project and the very first prototype of a laser-cutted kimono. It consists of 4 parts or 4 pieces that are cut in very simple lines, and then they have male and female parts. So they are modular, and once you can connect them by hand, and it will create this kind of like a 3D shape or 3D object. What is important with this project is that it should work as an open source. It's a distributed design, so it means that you can download it and you can fabricate it locally. So in this case, we can share basically the information among us. And that's something what I would like to, what is actually the aim of all the projects at the end, is to how we can make all these tools and machines and techniques accessible, and how we can share it within each other, and how to apply it in the fashion industry and to create more applications in a daily life. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Amazing work. Thank you for your presentation. And next, we have Ganit. So she's a 3D fashion designer specializing in the development of smart fabric systems. She's studying at smart in computation at MIT. She graduated with distinction in the fashion design from Bezalel Academy in Jerusalem, and completed her master's in soft systems textiles at the Royal College of Art in London. Her projects have been presented at exhibitions and museums globally, including Milan Design Week, New York Textile Month, Ars Electronica, and many more. Goldstein believes in an interdisciplinary approach to design, mixing tradition and futuristic techniques to emphasize the relationship between craft, technology, science, and arts. So the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniela. It's a great pleasure to be here and present my work and see also all the creative and fabulous designers presenting next to me. And I will present a bit of what I feel that digital craft means and what it means to me. So I'm Ganit. I'm a 3D fashion designer, and I'm working on the intersection of craft and technology to build advanced textile system. And my background is a bit diverse. So I'm now currently in MIT studying in the design computation group, but my background is really rooted inside textile and jewelry and fashion. I was also, I studied in Tokyo in the craft department in the textile art some weaving and other kind of textiles that are really traditional made. And my work and what's my interest is, it's the meaning of embedding new functions into wearables and finding new ways that digital and physical connection can be formed through the medium of 3D printing textiles. And I'm interested in how data and function can be connected to create customized systems, and then how to implement those inside the garment from the manufacturing to both in the digital and the physical world. And my work is also in between many kind of wearables. I'm working on full-scale body using multi-material 3D printing garments, up to a personalization of accessories and what it means to make fit-to-measure projects that are really taking the advantage of 3D body scan, and then also analyzing what's embedding electronics systems that can be implemented inside the fabric. And the connection between computers and textiles is really rooted in many historical references. And one of them is the Jacquard loom, where the collection of punch card is connected to a continuous sequence. And it's kind of operating the 0 and 1s through patterns holes. And and the outcome is really a combination of very colorful fabric. So this is one of the project that I worked in Tada residency in Switzerland, and analyzing how we can implement new technologies inside the system of Jacquard. But when I'm thinking about future of fashion, I really consider what it means to have the relationship between text and textiles, and the material ID, what it means in the digital space, and what kind of new languages we can implement, and ultimately to make this kind of customization of garment in a bigger workflow. And I think that when we design in the digital space, we are designing in a different way. We don't have lots of limitations of gravity, for example, in reality. So I'm always considering what's the benefits of using digital entities inside this kind of world of digitally. And then I worked a lot in the digital space, but one of the things that I'm interested was to work on customization of workflow for ikat weaving. So that was in Japan. And I worked on many kind of kimono style fabrics that has really traditional way of making. So this is ikat weaving, this is shibori technique, and using fabric, also a very traditional way of making fabrics in Japan. And my interest is also this kind of relationship between 3D multicolor printing and implement this in 3D scanning, but also thinking about how I can implement the past techniques. So this is part of my bachelor degree designs that were implementing the ikat weaving I learned in Japan and the future of 3D printing. So everything was kind of intertwined to one outfits or few outfits that really combine these techniques, but also when you can't really distinguish what was printed and what was handmade. So really thinking about this hybrid workflow that can work together, and how I can 3D print things, but then also implement my own crafts methods inside. So I will go through a bit fast on some other aspect of my work, but I'm also working on shoes design and combining the craft of shoes and the craftsmanship around it to implement it with 3D multicolor printing, with printing directly onto the fabric with the ability to print really small details. I'm also working with 3D scan of fit to make customized shoes that also implements a few techniques of handcraft on top. And the idea is really to make something that is personalized and fit to measure to the specific form of the body. And this kind of parametric design and the craftsmanship could be really distinguished through the colors and the shapes that formed. One of the biggest projects that I worked was a wearable collection. It was a big scale kimono that was implemented embroidery in between the prints and trying to work on the system of digitizing 3D multicolor with also embroidery that change color along the garment. It was made out of 16 pieces that were assembly also to the one piece, but it's also thinking about the connections between pieces and how we are designing it digitally and thinking about how we are solving lots of problems through digital design. This is the recent project that I presented in Milan Design Week together with Stratasys, and we worked on the multicolor printing directly onto the fabric. And this project was also, it has lots of implementation of multicolor printing, but also thinking about how we can make personalized design and style. And this was also a part of the reframe project and thinking about which materials we can use. So I used also recycled fabric and filaments to produce kind of new things from using the ability to design digitally. And so also during the pandemic, and I'm just wrapping up, during the pandemic, it was also really difficult to present or being physically seeing the fabric. And we also designed this kind of exhibition that you can see the 3D design, the 2D design, and then go through it in a virtual reality atmosphere, but also in a web add-on. Yeah, so yeah, it was really great to share my work. If you also have any question, you are welcome to message me and keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganit. Very exciting work. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
So next, I will invite Siyun. So she is an interdisciplinary fashion designer, artist, and visiting lecturer based in Beijing, in China. She is graduated with a MA at London College of Fashion and a bachelor at Central Academy of Fine Arts. Her research is dedicated to exploring the future fashion innovations of digitalization, drawing the hybrid avant-garde aesthetic from the symbiotic relationship within the body, nature, technology, and art. Siyun's work includes kinetic and interactive fashion art, digital couture, that have been showcased in multiple international well-known platforms such as International Fashion Art Exhibition, China Fashion Week, Beijing Fashion Weeks, Gamma Young Artist Competition. So Siyun, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Yes, hello everyone. And very nice to see you, and thank you very much for having me in this wonderful talk. So today my presentation is about digital fashion interface, digital dynamic and interactive design to show how I use digital technology, but mainly includes kinetic fashion and digital fashion to my design practice. So yeah, just like the introduction just now, my research is dedicated to exploring the digitalization of fashion. So there are three types of fashion that I create, like ready-to-wear, kinetic and interactive fashion artwork, and digital couture. But they are for both physical garments and digital garments. And this is also the reason I use the word digital. And my mission is to link both of them. And I will explain later. But anyway, my design principle highly emphasized the combination of fashion, art, and technology from the beginning to the end of the designing. And the word digital originally was created in 2013 by an Australian agency, and it's the concept of using technology to bridge the digital world with the physical world, with the purpose of providing unique interactive experience for the user. So during the pandemic, it was used in the field of fashion retailing, but I believe it also has impact on fashion design. So I started to think what does it mean to the design process. And at this stage, digital fashion interface expands from craftsmanship to digital technology and transfer between tangible and intangible user interface, and provide the possibility of the interaction and immersive experience for people to expand their understanding of the world. So just starting from my interest on surface and structure, I have tested a group of kinetic prototypes on fabric, the shape-changing form, material, structure, and visual emotional reactions. And in some cases, shape-changing let the object more flexible, adapted, and interactive. Just like some samples may make you feel comfortable when its shape change smoothly, but some might cause anxiety because they act too fast. And I believe the discussion and exploration of the digital fashion interface requires to go beyond only digital technology itself, but also at the same time should intertwine multiple dimension, cultures, and empathy. So this means when we use digital technology on fashion design today, the fashion designer is not rather just designing fashionable products or matters, but include designing many systems that lead users to better adapt to the future lifestyles. So the first project I'm going to introduce is Taiping. It's a kinetic and interactive fashion artwork that was inspired by the Chinese traditional heritage culture, the Lingnan lion dance. And we have a concept in this dance, and it means human life, human being, and nature is in a highly harmony. So here you could see I just have a very short video to show the blinking eyes of the lions. And I just use a couple of motors to activate honeycomb structures, textiles, surface to perform the movement. So when people are getting closer to the garment, the textile would be activated. And the last year, this work was showed on the Reality Beyond Reality, an international fashion art exhibition in China. So what I found very interesting is the reaction of the audience. So you can see in the pictures, they are curious about the shape-changing fabric and trying to communicate with the artwork with their body language. So when the human-computer interaction applied into fashion design, I would say digital technology allows viewers help and collaborate with creators to complete their artwork together at different times and space, and as well as express themselves without limitation by physical words. And except for kinetic fashion, I also create digital fashion and collaborated with photographers, models, or social media influencers. My digital fashion combines computational design to create parametric surface and structure. And here is one of the examples of it, just based on dual mesh. I tried different surface as a result, and it enabled me to have various options to see which one is the best, I think. With this method, I made many collections by using the same elements. So the next project is the underwater inhabitants. This is a digital fashion film that I collaborated with a virtual icon studio to produce the film, and also I designed the digital garments. And we have a few keywords for the theme, which is ocean care, ecological crisis, beyond reality, and organic symbiosis. So we just create a surrealistic future in the virtual world that human beings, ocean, and marine lives are expanded into a symbiosis. And we tend to discuss the digital ethic and a vision of ocean care. So see next. So the design of the digital fashion based on diving suits. And as I mentioned above, I want to styling and image it. I want the styling and the image like a symbiosis of human, ocean, and marine life. So the aesthetics comes from abstract combination of diving suit, the shape of water, corals, and reefs. But I generally use multiple softwares rather than only to make garments. And afterwards, I think now that we are in virtual world, so we are able to create some very futuristic and surrealistic things. And so come back to this outfit, it became the foundation to create the others. And this digital film has been launched on 2023 spring and summer in China Fashion Weeks. And we aim to strongly show my own label's identity. So like digital technology expand the boundary from traditional fashion to digital film, and to inspire people to rethink what fashion means in the future. And after launching the show, this collection includes 4 outfits and 1 accessories are sold on sorry for that, are sold on digital business platform, and also the accessory is able to be fitted on. So from design to production to the display, and finally going to the commercial consumption. It's totally digital, and it has been a unique form for my customers to adjust themselves to share their fashionable expressions. And I believe like the rapid development of the digital technology and fabrication not only bring so much creativity and business, but also has a very strong power to inspire people to rethink their identities, lifestyles, and cultures which are, full of the human care. So I'll come back to the digital fashion and go further. I conclude and highlight three keywords that lead me to the next. And they means the application of digital technology on fashion were intertwined with multiple mediums to discover new technique and link multiple sensories to visualize and explore more unknown data or objects, and by using multiple reality to better adapt the changing experience. So here is my exploration on digital fashion design. Thank you very much again. And I feel like there is still a lot of research and practice to do in the future. And I think digital technology is actually not a completely new for fashion, but it has become a culture, a change gradually, and been embedded into everyone's daily life. So to push it into fresher and more interesting and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Siyun. I'm absolutely curious to hear more about that idea during the discussion at the end of the presentations. So don't lose that thought. Thank you for your presentation and congratulations on your work. So next we have Luis. He currently works on multidisciplinary projects that relate research, design, materialization, and education processes on living architecture, film production, metaverse, NFTs, and AI. Also in the creation of a new design and creation methodology. Founder director of the Holometabolos polyformous design project, which integrates AI, science, technology, 3D manufacturing, fashionism, cinema, and photography in an environmental of growing international collaboration in London, Barcelona, Paris, Peru, Mexico, and Italy. He obtained several distinctions of his projects focused on living systems, and he has collaborated in art projects, architecture, exhibitions, and competitions. So welcome, and you may present your work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Luis Matias, and today I'm going to present the Holometabolos project, which is a collaborative project that I will explain in a few moments. But I would like to say that it's a pleasure for me to be here and also explain this new kind of methodology that I'm starting with a group of friends, with a group of collaborators that are interested in trying to explore new paradigms of creation. So as Daniela says, I'm a kind of artist with studies on architecture, and I would like to say that I have a certain kind of experience in different disciplines, trying to explore always a new kind of design methodology, where I think that design is not just a kind of result where that can have like an end, or could have a different end, always trying to evolve into a new start for a new project. So every kind of step is always a new possibility for creation. So on this logic is that the Holometabolos project born. This is a polymorphic design project in which various disciplines in different natures are developed in collaborations, also with different professionals from different parts of the world. The logic of this project consists in developing projects ideas, from different disciplines without neglecting any, no matter how different their nature or approach is to the answer. After this first process of identify the purpose of the project, coincidences and collaborators are proposed for the realization, and also for imagining how this could evolve or how this could be. The last step, as we know, for how we are producing now, ending in like a first stage of results that can be extrapolated to various fields, so it's building and constant transformations of ideas and their metamorphosis. So today I would like to present this first step, which I call digital disobedience, as the first input of a very long process of creation, which is made with artificial intelligence, specifically made with Midjourney, this kind of software in which we can make or we can think or imagine realities that are not constructed but can evolve in many results that can have like a lot of bodies, not just digital, but could be on a film or science, for example. So I will present these 6 projects that were made with these softwares that is called Midjourney. All these projects have like a different nature, depending on how the group of designers think the fashion design can evolve. Some of them are focused on biological design, and others explore more on a digital way, as I will present now. This is the first project that is called Post-Apocalyptic Ecologies. And this is the first project that the Aldometabolus studio is making now. This is a kind of metaverse reality where we are designing the clothes for these avatars and also the scenarios, but we are focused on generating a narrative where we can imagine how the costumes are part of the human, but not in a way of as a fashion design. It's more focused on how the body can understand the scenario in which he is, or which the character is, and how the body as itself can evolve. The second project that is called Habitant is a kind of speculation about the possible need to require an inhabitant in a body. This has an origin on the idea of a symbiotic body that has an explanation in how the body in a few years can have like a necessity of another body to coexist with it, for have a better kind of living status as a response to survive. So there were made many iterations of how this symbiotic body can coexist with the existing human body, and also how this affects to their anatomy, to their ecology, and their appearance to the world. The third project, which is exovascular system, is a project that we are making now in Barcelona. Is producing with a brand that is called Papi and Mami. This project tries to think from how can we democratize the cloth, the fashion design of that is making now, but also think on how the costumes can work not as a can work as a live machine, trying to use this logic of vascular system. We transforming on an exovascular system that tries to have many functions around the body, not just to look as a very interesting costume, but also have like an approach for have functions that the body can work on. The third project is the Perfect Body, that is also an attempt to democratize and make this catwalk fashion more visible for the people. Also using this very famous, very famous costume. There is the puffer jacket. Rethinking on a new method of design, of costume design, in which we can combine different textures, different the different 3D speculation of the anatomy of the human, and how this even can grow and sometimes can be smaller. The fifth project is the Not Just Makeup, that is being making in London now. This is an approach for thinking on how makeup now is not just a kind of understanding the face expression, or also the typical magazine expression in this actually world. Is even thinking on how the materials and also the textures can reimagine the imagine as itself. For example, thinking on how the colors and the especially textures of the face can combine and also be part of a more coexisting projects. And well, the sixth is the Parasite, which takes inspiration of this insect that is the cockroach. This is the Parasite project that builds a kind of aesthetic and expressive dialogue of coexistence between the human and this very particular insect that is the cockroach, which have a kind of very interesting time of living. So if we think on this image, we can imagine on how in a possible future we can have like a mix, like a kind of coexistence between these kind of insects and the anatomy of the bodies of human bodies that need some of the characteristics of these insects, and how we can success the survival. And that's all. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Thank you, Luis, for your presentation. Congratulations on your work. And next, I will invite Maritza Martin to make her presentation. She is an architect at PLP Architecture. She has several years of experience working at UK architecture studios, from concept design for international competitions in Saudi Arabia, the Netherlands, Denmark, to master plan planning in London. Her main interests include emergent technologies, fashion, and photography. The main goal as an architect is the understanding and use of new tools, AI tools, metaverse, Unreal Engine, and so on, that offer innovative and sustainable choices for each of the project development. Maritza, welcome, and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Daniela. Let me share my screen first. Can you see my screen? All right.
Yes.
I guess you can. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a really pleasure to be invited by Digital Futures. And I've seen so brilliant, talented designers that I will try to be brief and share my piece of work. About me, I'm Maritza Rubio. I'm a Spanish architect. I've been living in London for 5 years. Since then, I studied a Master of Emerging Technologies and Design at Architectural Association. And then I started working at different international London-based architectural firms. Currently, as you say, Daniela, I'm at PLP Architecture, where they also have a department of lab research, where they explore emerging tools to do futuristic concepts. So that's where I get inspired by all these new tools, especially AI. It's been since July 2022 that they started being in everywhere. I don't know about you guys if you know about these AI programs, but it's really, really interesting. And it's where I started to explore, apart from architecture, fashion, and how I could merge these two fields into using AI. So let me explain you first my design workflow, what I'm doing with AI. I'm using Midjourney, as Luis explaining, is AI artificial intelligence tool, free, open for everyone. And from there, I created the concepts. As an architect, of course, this is the concept design process, and it's really powerful because Midjourney, as you know, they produce instant images into seconds. So it's really, really useful for architects, because you know that you guys that modeling and processing the concept that you want, it takes hours, and even doing overnight to produce an image. But Midjourney makes make it possible to bring these images, produce images. And then when I produce them, because they come with little patches, or like defaults or something that you really think that it doesn't bring into a realistic images, I use DALL-E, which is another really powerful AI tool, and Photoshop to merge this concept design. I brought a couple of examples to explain the process. So this is the output that Midjourney bring in as the beginning. And as you can see, there's like the face and body parts that are not coming realistic. So that's when I merged it with different iterations, and I combined them all together to make it looking something more realistic. This is, of course, an early stage of Midjourney. So that's why the images are not looking really refined. But this is just has to explain my workflow with AI. And then I go through, I did a little experiment about what was the early stage of the version of Midjourney, and how, as you can see, there are like the different versions that I evolved. At the end, it became more realistic, which is overwhelming because this tool is being evolving throughout few months. So it's really interesting how we now, with the same prompt is like basically the text that you input to create the image, how the same prompt from the early old version till now, 2023, it became like a really realistic. So today, that's basically I created a website where I can share in triplet images how the same prompt can combine photorealism and early design concepts into an image. So I think at this point, fashion industry could have like sort of like different options to first select the concept, customize based on the clients what they would like to bring to reality, and not, you know, fashion industry. I got into that because also I know that every year there are like different fashion events, and there's really producing a lot of pollution, and is bringing like not a really sustainable environment to create the concepts from the beginning. So this tool allows us to create images and bring out also, because as an architect, I also bring the background as a important also a concept. I combined it and then I merged them to bring different and novel, fresh concepts to this industry. So in this image, for example, you can see I combine in this one generative design, 3D printing prompts, and this one it's bringing more materiality or color tones. This one brings more like the concept of like a pavilion, like a stage that can be designed as a background, just to bring more realism on the stage. And of course, I'm really having fun with doing these images. So I just started point, I think, is really powerful AI. At this moment, also even I, as Haneen said at the beginning, I also bring a personal project. I have a dog called Lola. So you can see the outfit that I imagine my dog will wear at some point in the future, and I can 3D print it. So yeah, I just having fun creating the concept first, and then I will probably explore metaverse or 3D printing to create with sustainable materials as the other designers share the projects to bring it to reality. So what future bring us, we don't know yet. It's exciting moment, but I think it will be for sure very interesting tools that we can explore. So thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Thank you, Maritza. And thank you all for your presentations. Neil, do you want to comment or ask?
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, first of all, I'll say these really brilliant presentations. It's a fantastic session today. I mean, hugely talented. I just wanted to say something. I mean, at the back of my mind, there's this kind of question. I don't know how many of you know there was an issue of architectural design, which I guest edited with Benaz Farahi, called 3D printed body architecture. And there was deliberate, the title was really deliberate. Because what's interesting about Benaz is she's trained as an architect, but she ended up doing a PhD in the cinema school, in the interdivisional media arts and practice program at USC. And they was kind of amazed by what an architect could do, because they did things on the screen, but she was kind of designing and fabricating and understood material behavior and all these other questions. And I think what became very clear is that those who've been trained in architecture especially, and maybe we'll come to others as well, have got a set of skills that are very marketable, that actually could be used in other domains. And now we're finding ourselves in a sense where almost the distinction between different disciplines has become erased in some ways. And one of the kind of, one of the comments that came out in the issue of AD was by Paola Antonelli, who's a Museum of Modern Art in New York. And she kind of made this comment, really, that architecture is simply part of a broader spectrum of design. There is no difference, ultimately, between all these kind of domains. And that's, I think, a very important issue. And I just want to say that there are these other areas that architects go into, and that once Helen Castle called other architectures. And I also did an AD on space architecture, where I found there was a whole bunch of architects working in the space industry for NASA and so on. And I think what's happening now, especially with the introduction of some of these tools, DALL-E and Midjourney especially, that allow you to operate in a certain sort of way, is all those silos are all breaking down even further. And I kind of think that really what we'll be talking about in the future is not fashion or architecture or whatever, but rather design as a kind of a continuum. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because it seems to me that I know that not everyone's from architecture, but actually, but in fact, what is interesting is the blending or the blurring or the breaking down of boundaries. And I think that's really the way forward. So I just want to throw that out as a comment, because I think all of this work, I mean, it is kind of very transgressive in a sense of disciplinary boundaries. Let me just put that out there as a kind of as an idea. Does anybody kind of feel that they definitely come from a, let's say, architecture or fashion background? Because it seems that they're all breaking down those boundaries.
Thank you, Neil. It's a really relevant point, this idea of not putting fashion or architecture inside the bubble, but understand that it's part of a common ground. I think we had really amazing concepts, projects, ideas shared. To start so at the beginning of this talk, I launched 3 major questions. I don't know if any of you want to comment on what kind of future can we envision in the fashion industry, or what has been the main contribution of technology for fashion. Can we look forward to wearing clothes that are alive? I don't know if any of the speakers today want to share some ideas about this or complement with your thoughts.
Here, let me start real quick. I just wanted to say thank everyone who presented. I wrote a ton of questions in the chat, so many that it might be a little overwhelming because I was excited. But I think mostly today, we just want to hear from you why this is so important for you. And I think Neil brought up a really interesting point. I mean, are there barriers? Why, what is architecture? What is fashion? How does the role of technology play in your lives? And then what do you see this becoming? Because there's a lot going on right now. So please.
I may start.
Say something.
Yes, I would love to do that. First, Neil just simply said it beautifully, especially with the boundaries being somehow melting and it's expanding. The variety that is needed to produce artistic fashion in a way needs from you to be good at problem solving and yet having a lot of passion for this area, because especially it feels more like an experimental field. And talking about where does design start? Is it fashion? Is it architecture? I always felt that the lines are blurry. All you need is very high interest in a subject. If you have a good problem-solving skills and passion, you can flourish in any field. And somehow I don't see this fashion field being taken away from products or architecture, as it feels more as one field where you kind of find your way or your passion within it. That's what I wanted to share, honestly.
I also have a point of what Neil say about how we can break out these boundaries between different fields, especially architecture. I think as an architect, I would say that it's really exciting how you can combine nowadays different industries or like different concept designs using these new tools. Not that new tools, but they evolve throughout the time. And I think, in my opinion, this is just the beginning of what we are like looking at. Like we are 3D printing, we are using metaverse to bring out digitally and virtually. People can see the data models or 3D virtual models. And at the end, I believe that this virtual universe in parallel to our real universe is gonna bring us also the 5 sense of feeling this type of designs. It's kind of scary, but also I feel that it's something that fashion industry can't deny or ignore it at the moment. It's something that could be part of the fashion showcase that they showed that they are happening in any part of the world. At this time, is going to be being in one single place. Is going to be joined by our power to say that how we can share it in one place. So that's why I'm looking at this really in detail, like what it brings us. But yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Well, maybe I could just add something, Daniela. I just think that kind of this idea of blurring the boundaries is already, I mean, there's also a blurring the boundaries, the phygital, right, between the digital and the physical. Also, I think what is interesting about this group is it's kind of so international. It's kind of been dipping into all these different cultures, and it's very much, I mean, it's difficult to say this guy's from Peru, this guy's from China. I mean, everyone is kind of it's really, it sums up a lot of things that we're talking about right now. And it's an extraordinary kind of transgressive, shall we say, in the way that it approaches boundaries.
Ganit or Siyun, do you guys, or Petra, do you want to say something about where we are with technology, or where we are with, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Or you want to go? Okay. Maybe what I've been thinking, and maybe I would like to add what was said, is that at some point we are looking for some application and how to really find a way or some meaning for it. But on the other hand, like my personal experience with that was that I left my country or my architecture studies, and I started to be more focused on the textile because it wasn't very well developed in Slovakia. The knowledge that we had at the university, it wasn't developed very well. So no one could give me basically really good guidance during the studies. So for the reason I decided to move out and just to explore it a little bit, to get out of my comfort zone. But now I'm at the moment that I'm thinking like, how is the way that we can change this kind of system as it is, like because the traditional way of architecture is that you will picture someone sketching and doing drawings and so on. And to shift this kind of perspective, especially in my home country, is very difficult. So step by step, I'm trying to get involved into different projects, to do some, for example, workshops to bring it back. But sometimes it's not so easy as it is, for example, here in Spain. So this is something besides all the project would like to keep working on more, like how we can shift this kind of very like traditional way of thinking and just get closer to the technologies, because if you don't know how it works, then you don't know how to use it or how to use any kind of these tools.
Yeah, maybe I can continue also what Petra was mentioning, but I also feel that there is now much more access to many technologies. So there are lots of do-it-yourself, and you can, if you want to to do something you can learn and you can expand your horizon much easier, I feel. So for me, it was also this kind of understanding, how do you take advantage of knowledge and a common knowledge and then implement it to your own workflows. And I remember myself also in my studies, I had this few 3D printers that are home printer, and I could really experiment lots of ideas without the need to go to a specific company or a specific hub, and it became much more accessible in any scale. And I feel that this kind of blurriness also, that you can do things by yourself and you don't need to rely on big companies that will help you. It's also something that helps creativity inside fashion. And because textiles is such a tangible medium, you can experiment with many things that not relying on industry. And I feel that there is this kind of gap still between the physical entities and how you design digitally, and then how you implement it in the real world. So we have all these tools, and we have 3D scanning, we have photogrammetry, and we have 3D printers, and we have all the tools designing digitally. But once we actually want to implement it to the real world, it's not so direct. So there is not yet a specific tool or a specific workflow that helps to manufacture a garment. And I think that's where the innovation of the future of fashion will be, when workflows will be much more easy to implement this digital world into the physical space. Yeah, and I think also commenting on this kind of blurriness, I think that lots of this kind of mixture of knowledge also really connected to education. And now we engineers can do this exactly the same as textile designers, and implementation of many technologies could be learned in different mediums, but the outcome could be quite the same. And I think that once we all work in this kind of hybrid workflows, it helps to also communicate between technology and artists and designers and science.
Siyun, I think you wanted
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So like I do feel there are many comments between fashion and architecture, and now the boundaries are gradually blurred. And for my works, like as you mentioned, the kinetics, yes, and it originally from architecture or an art movement called kinetic art, but I just applying it into fashion, and I choose this work, kinetic. And actually, this kind of garments, they don't have a official name. Some people call it robotic garments, and some people call it kinetic garments or anything else. It doesn't have an official name actually, but I choose the word kinetic is because I believe it has the connection with art and architecture. So that's just what I call it. But I feel like the common between them is because it depends on your design objects and scale. Like if you just doing a design for the body, it's textile. No, it's a garment. If you do the design for the bigger one, indoor design, so it can be this textile. And if you do a large scale, it can be the surface of a building. So that relates to the architecture. So they usually have something in common. But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that I know many things from the architecture just because I use some of the knowledge and some of the technology from it. I feel like it's still a little bit difficult to apply all of the technology from the other field, although we emphasize on interdisciplinary, and although we highlight the important and essentiality to combine different technology. But I feel like it's important to know the essence of this skill, and you just know how to use it, when to use it, why you use it, and how to use it. And you can ask help for other professional from this film, or you could have group. Like you could actually do everything by yourself with the help of technology, but I just don't feel it's very necessarily to do that. And a team could work better, but as a designer, or it's kind of like a leader position or a very important position of a team, then you know how to use the technology and when to use this technology, and then you know how to just do the things efficiently. So this is just my opinion on the architecture and fashion, and also the boundary between different subjects.
Thank you, Siyun. Luis, I was wondering, when we are discussing about this idea of merging disciplines, your work, your presentation today, I find it that your designs are very dramatic and almost cinematic. And some of those designs could be present in some science fiction movies, or, I mean, I was wondering if you feel when you develop your work, if you have the conscious of this merge of different disciplines and knowledge and tools and ways of working.
Yes, thank you. Well, the project as itself born as this idea of collaboration between many disciplines, but also this borns with a purpose of thinking on this sense of science and biology. That is what the project is called Holometabolus, because we are thinking on a process that is always evolving and developing different results. And also, I would like to answer the last question, that was if we consider this kind of costumes as living beings, or of what could happen if they are alive. I think that clothing can be alive as a response to certain change of the environment, for example, or maybe specific needs of the body. But then the question could be of what we consider alive. For example, between something automated or something that could think as itself as an independent being. After this comes the idea of the symbionte, for example, that comes to my mind, thinking about this kind of wearable being. I think that we can imagine the artificial living, we can imagine on artificial living systems. For example, now we have the bubble logic of Manu Prakash, of the scientific Manu Prakash, when we can manipulate matter from different kinds of actions, just thinking on physics and kind of chemistry, or also the protocells of Rachel Armstrong, in which we can think also in the manipulation, the artificial manipulation of living beings in consequence to have something that is alive, but not really alive, of a kind of a monster that have like a relationship with us. Also like as a kind of coexistence between different species that at the end are the same species with one purpose, which is survive. According to these changing designs, also based on this, we can think on sustainability, because now the clothing design, well, the fashion design is thinking of bodies that we can use for a time and then we can, well, we don't need it. But what could happen if we can manipulate this matter to have like a kind of evolved clothing where these outfits can evolve over the time? And yeah, that's what the designs were made for, to think on how the clothing design can evolve on a time and could be, it's just matter that have different kind of patterns, different kind of colors, but at the end could be the same kind of living being that is with us.
Daniela, can I just chip in something just on this discussion about technology and breaking down barriers between different disciplines? One of the, I mean, a long time ago, I produced a book called Digital Tectonics with some colleagues, and one of the things that came out that was about engineering and architecture and the boundary and the use of these tools. And early on, it was very clear that the technology was helping to break down those boundaries. There was a comment made by Chris Williams, who's now quite a famous structural engineer. And he was saying that on the one hand, engineers were terrible at sketching, right? Really bad at sketching. But these tools allow them to draw much better. And at the same time, architects are really bad at structures, but then now these tools allow them to understand structures. And I think that's the kind of like, in some ways, the technology itself is breaking down all those kind of barriers between these different disciplines in an interesting kind of fashion. I think the other thing I'd say is that I think there is actually a particular, I think there are certain connections, more connections between some disciplines and others. I think that, for example, fashion and architecture have to address function and materiality in a way that the world of art doesn't have to do it at all, And I often think there's a kind of spectrum of different disciplines that we all could have gone into. When you choose the age of 14 or 15 or God knows when, what do you want to go into? You select from a range, but there could have been others. And I often think that there is a kind of, you could see how fashion or indeed filmmaking or other things, and architecture, are kind of similar in a sense. They involve a many different sort of tasks, different sort of processes, understanding material behavior, and you have to try and be able to understand the whole thing. And it's kind of no coincidence that you get these kind of overlaps between some of these different disciplines. I think winemaking is another one which it comes in there. You get people like Rem Koolhaas, who was a filmmaker, who becomes an architect, and you get filmmakers like Francis Ford Coppola becoming a winemaker. Then you get architects like Ma Ching-yung becoming a winemaker, and so on. And I think that you can sort of see there are kind of commonalities, and they all are all about sort of understanding the sequence, the process of design to construction, in which there are many specialists involved, and you have to kind of choreograph the whole scenario. But it's I think sometimes when with these technologies, sometimes the kind of your background maybe potential other avenues that you could have explored suddenly become possible again. I certainly think with Midjourney that fashion is suddenly becoming incredibly accessible in a kind of frightening way, because it means that kind of like if architects can do fashion, then fashion people can do architecture and so on, and it's all kind of open. But I think the technology has been responsible for breaking down these barriers between these different disciplines.
Well, don't be shy. I mean, I think that there are so many great institutions represented, but my particular interest is between art and science. Like, why do we thrive to understand, to move beyond the aesthetics? And then why is it so important to understand material properties or the computational platform at a basic level? and we can all learn, and we don't really have to go to school. But I'm not really sure if we're current or if we're building on ideas. I think that recently completing a PhD, I realized there was a difference between you as an artist, you as a professional, and you as an academic, building on the contributions of knowledge and trying to make something that's completely brand new in the field. And we have, you know, Professor Leach, who has really created, I think, a library of knowledge, and for us to identify what is important, and giving us the responsibility to even make new terms, new ideas, and to really push the boundaries even further. Does anyone have any questions about what they see currently and what things we might need to pay attention to in the field of fashion and architecture?
If I may say, I think that the research should be a very big and important part of the fashion at the end, because I found, for example, myself in the position where I'm now working between architecture, it's fashion, or it's textile, and it's also material research. And then you meet someone new and they will ask you, like, so what are you doing for a living? And you can say that you are an architect, but at the end you have to explain them that you are doing like so many times at the same time. And I think that it's very important, because at the end you will come into the intersection that you will explore something new. So it's something that what we actually need to also think about the climate change and recycle the material and so on. So at the moment, is it digital fabrication with some material research, but like all this stuff you can do, or the people I know who are working with they're from many fields, they are learning like on their own, basically. So all this biomaterial stuff and the chemistry, and then you find an expert to help you out with that. And I think that even coming from architecture, it's not limiting at all, because then you will find you are always working in a team, for example. So you can get different inputs, and also the other people probably comes from biology, or they are makers, or you never know. And this combination, I think, is the one that will find some new solution for the problems we are challenging now.
Could I just maybe chip in a comment there? And I think that the kind of collaboration that, for example, Philip Beasley has been doing with R.S. van Herpen is kind of very kind of symptomatic of what we're talking about, this kind of cross-disciplinary collaboration. But one of the things that became clear to us before we produced the 3D printed body architecture was that the number of architects who are actually working with R.S. van Herpen, Neri Oxman, Nicolo Casas, and so on. Actually, everybody making her fashion was from an architectural background. I think what was becoming very clear is that architects had really got a sense of the technology more than the fashion world. But I do think that there's kind of those huge collaborations that could be possible, and I sort of see that the Philip Beasley R.S. van Herpen one is one that is kind of like just laying the ground for something else that really could be developing in the future.
I just wanted to chip in, because we were talking about architecture and boundaries, and you were talking about the skills boundaries being broken to some extent, and also Maritza, we're talking about the accessibility, also boundaries being broken down. And right now we can start fashion just by using a computer. You don't have even a tailoring machine, which is pretty awesome. And I feel like now is the time when you don't just inspire technology, but also get inspired by it. And as much as this open up unlimited possibilities for you, you gotta find some kind of a balance in order not to be confined within technology, because sometimes when you spend a lot of time just dealing with technology, you kind of lose sense, maybe a bit with reality or with nature to some extent. So this kind of balance between technology art, nature, and recyclability, you see people using implemented plants within fabrics or within garments, and while also using technology to produce the structure for them. And it really creates a very limitless, inspiring environment for architects or other designers to be free. And this is why I feel like you see more architects, because at this time I feel technology is so well integrated within the fashion industry. But at the same time, I feel just like in any field of technology, it has its own disadvantages of being maybe too confined within programs, or having to be very skilled at different technology parts in order to produce your work. And this is when you have to get back a bit and think of the concept, or why are you doing this? As maybe Siyun have been talking about. And this is when you know, I'm doing this for this reason, and this is how I'm going to use technology to produce whatever it is you're looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also add, related to what was saying, it's more also finding the value in producing. And I think sustainability also in fashion is something that is really connected to material and processes and production. And I think that if we think about this sustainable future, it's really about embedding much more value in the product. And I think, from my opinion, it's also this kind of sustainable future to make something that is customized and not mass manufactured, but much more relying on a need. And I think that's where we are heading, to try to make a sustainable future for fashion that is more customized to what we need to produce, and not just to produce for the sake of making and producing.
I just have a little. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Can I add something of Haneen and Ganit? I actually they got 2 points that I really want to bring it back about the customization of fashion, and like also I think in the chat they were saying what is the grand challenge for fashion, and especially I think we all agree that sustainability could be one of the principles of and the future design challenges, like for fashion design. Probably bring a process more sustainable and customized to everyone that wanted to bring to fabricate something that it's adequate to the environment where they live. Because also the climate change is crazy now, and especially I've seen it. I'm from Spain, and it's been like 50 degrees in summer, which is hell. And I say we can bring them back, like how we can adequate this fashion design depending on the environment, depending on, we don't need, as an architect, probably we don't need like always the same mass production design, everything that the industry brings us. But we probably can't, as also Nia was saying, and I forgot the name, but I mean, as you guys say, like the material research, how we can bring something more sustainable, could bring like probably smart materials that they can't adequate depending on the climate wherever we are, and that's why I think I wanted to bring this kind of like a opinion about the fashion industry.
May I add something to your comment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just have a little comment that I wanted to add to what Maritza was saying. Like textile is one of the most polluting industries. And if you want to look at the future of the fashion world, we can also look at the future of other fields, like, for example, cars. You see that within 50 to 70 years, we're all going for electric cars. So there's a huge trend in all fields to the recyclability and the environmental impact we're having of whatever we're producing. But this also goes to fashion, as fast fashion is everywhere, and the textile industry is generating so much waste in landfills and in oceans. And I believe this is where the future is for fashion.
Hey, Luis, go for it.
No, yes, I just want to add what Neil says at the beginning of this collaboration between Philip Beasley and Iris van Herpen, and also adding with this idea of sustainability and environment, climate change. We can think of what is like the matter of these clothing designs, but we can also think on how it's constructed. For example, in this collaboration, I find very interesting the idea of system, because now we think on clothes as pieces of art, or a complete body that we can use and then we can take it off and use it again. But what could happen if we think that the custom designs are like a construction of very small parts that are connected to others, can be connected in many ways, and also think that these little parts, these little kind of connections can have functions also within the body that can be manipulated, that can evolve with the body as itself, that can evolve with environmental change. Thinking just in systems, for example, the idea of the anatomy, the human anatomy as an architecture, we can find very interesting systems as the vascular system, for example, that can give us some answers on how we can, how the materials and these little parts can have a kind of chemical language or chemical communication between them. Yes.
I just want to also to bring up the idea of the speculative here. It's I'm glad that Neil brought up his books about space architecture and 3D printing, but you know, some of the fashions that you were displaying to me are futuristic. So I think Neil started making some fashion and AI work, and I kept thinking, what about, you know, motorcyclists? I ride a motorcycle and I almost died on my motorcycle. And I kept thinking, wouldn't it be cool to not only look great, but also for these things to respond? And I'm just thinking with climate change, fashion might take on a more lead role. So if there's torrential rains, or if there's climate that changes a lot, or even if there's pollution, how do you see fashion adapting to this ever-changing world that's becoming, I think, a little bit more, I'm not sure if it's violent, Neil. I'm not really sure what the word is, but we definitely need to adapt to the environment more.
Yeah, maybe I could just throw something out there. I think was it Maritza who was the MTech group? I mean, I was teaching at the AA when Neri was there and Akin was there. Really remarkable people, and I think their studies of material behavior have been really important. I think especially the work on wood that Akin's been doing, and really began to realize actually you have to work with nature, understand wood, and work with that. I'm sure that's happening also in the fashion industry, but I do think that that Akin's work, he just won a major award, right, for this as well, as pointing towards the efficiency of reduction of materials in the first place, which is I think what the project ICD is all about. But also this idea that you can work in harmony with nature and natural systems, and not in a top-down way impose things on things, but actually understand the morphogenetic properties of material behaviors.
I also, yeah, I actually think that what Gustavo said, like about the real experience of almost having an accident in a motorcycle, and that you have what you're wearing is not protecting you, just a helmet, it doesn't give you so much security, confidence, like whenever you feel like you're in danger, because human beings, we are really like we can have an accident and we can die like immediately. So it's if we have like a shell, like a cocoon, like what Haneen was saying, like I would say, like getting that concept, like protecting you. I am really I believe that probably fashion could manage to bring this type of useful tools, like whatever activity you are doing, if there's a way that it can give you a protection apart from, of course, design and aesthetics, I believe that could be like amazing. Just there would be like the full package, and I will get it immediately. I will buy it online. But it's true that it's sort of like whenever it's something that protects you, it's ugly, it's not looking great. But if it's combined, all the aspects, the factors that we need for whatever activity we're doing, fashion could also do it. If it's beautiful, yeah, you look beautiful, but it's very expensive or it's not affordable for everyone. What I would just come up with is summarize as an idea is that fashion is just not for wealthy people or for, it doesn't have to be luxurious. It can be just an affordable tool, like as the tools that we have that we can use, we can learn, and probably it will bring us that challenge of also doing affordable, but also protective, and also aesthetically beautiful. And that's what I think we could bring it as designers.
Well, I mean, the discussion has been great. I think what we're going to try to do is wind down. But before we do that, I wanted to hear from each one of you individually. Like what do you see the future of this industry being? What's our responsibilities? I've put in the chat a lot of the discussions we've had today, but Neil is a wealth of references. So we in Digital Futures always welcome dialogue. If you're interested in doing something else with fashion, we would be great. But I mean, let's actually start with Petra. I think Petra has a lot of energy here. Petra, what are your final thoughts about all this? Like, what did you learn today, and what do you want to leave us with?
I definitely learned much more about AI and all these kind of things that I'm not so in touch with, and was very inspiring to see it. And hopefully I can somehow reflect all this knowledge into something new and just combine it with my and other skills coming from the architecture and diffuse another boundaries of fashion with it. And for me personally, I hope to see more experimenting with materials in fashion, because we have all these kind of technologies, but I don't think we still have some proper materials to work with it. And I would love to see also, because we are trying to design new machines, new tools, everything, but at the end we also have to find a way how to recycle everything, all the clothes what we have and what we will be producing. So hopefully to see more some ideas or a project coming up with closing a life cycle of the fashion industry.
Haneen, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure, definitely. Well, in regards of what I learned a lot today. I loved all the projects that were shared. They were truly inspiring, and you can see the exploration, you can see final results, you can see stuff that can be sold or going directly to the market. And what I loved about the discussion, especially when we talked about the boundaries and the future of fashion, because right now you see a lot of experiments and artists or designers or architects as well coming up with solution that both is serves a purpose and is aesthetics. You lately see the headphones being inside the earrings, and you can see how fashion is about to be fully incorporated with the digital world through wearables or through materials. But I think the hardest thing to do is not just doing the experiments or coming up with new ideas, but also to reach a point where it's fully experimented and fully serves the function and purpose of its kind. And I do believe that these needs a lot of collaboration with specialty fields, whether in biology or in 3D types of 3D fabrication, in order to make durable items that truly serves their functions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ganit, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really trying to think about hybridity between knowledge and between science and art. And I think once the technology also allowing us to use the same softwares, and it's much easier to be access to those kind of knowledge libraries. I think also it will make our collaboration much more easy between designers and engineers. And I think also if we go back to the history of textiles, it's all about material scientists and engineers, and it's very much connected to for making this weaving machine. It's so complex that it must have a collaborative approach, and I think that's where also the future of this kind of collaboration should go, when you collaborate, when artists and designers are really want to collaborate and not to do only one thing, but really expand the knowledge between fields. And yeah, I think also I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think it's amazing also to see our backgrounds and how we are seeing this kind of common future for more sustainable production. And I think all the tools are really can be combined to make this better future for fashion, because it's really becoming a huge problem, and it is a huge problem if we think about manufacturing and waste, and digital tools and lots of knowledge of these kind of things can also be rooted back to how we are manufacturing garments. Thank you.
Thank you. Siyun?
Well, yes, just talking to the sustainability, and I just feel like the impacts on environment, like the climate change, is just one of the aspects of the sustainability, but also include the others like laws, ethic, and morality, and also just like what I did in my project for the heritage culture of each country. So I think to talk to the sustainability cannot only mention the environment change. So yeah, and this just push every designer to think about it. And one of the outputs I found from like recent years, like, digital fashions, and some people think, and I do believe that I could transfer some of my creativity into the virtual world, that I don't have to produce it. I don't have to waste too many fabric. And I do have my own brand, and I have a studio. And it was just so terrible when you cutting the fabric and throw it. And we have many garbage bins to packet it, and it's just so terrible to wasting it. And I am aware that especially I work as a freelance fashion designer. So I just can imagine how terrible it is when it put into the massive factoring. And yeah, one of the reasons that I chose digital fashion is that I don't need to produce real garments, even though I still produce some real garment, but it's custom, it's very personal, it's very customized design. So yeah, and this is the second important point for the sustainability, just to buy something you really need. And like the fashion is about the dessert, is a kind of way, it's a kind of lifestyle. I mean, so just to buy something that you really need and you really want. And the third one is, I do really want to do many speculative design during my design process, because I think the improvement of technology cannot be only focused on the technology itself, but also the culture we express. So you see, in my works, I choose many topics from the society issues, like the ocean care, like the Chinese heritage culture, because we are losing it, and I feel that's a pity. And also, yeah, as a designer, we are not only designing a product, but we could express this culture to the public, and we could show them just to our customer to build their awareness. I don't know if I say it properly. sorry for my English, but yeah, that's what I mean. Like a designer is actually an interface to reach this kind of culture and to the customer. So it's very important for us to know the responsibility.
Thank you. Maritza or Luis, your thoughts?
Yes. Well, I find it really interesting, but all that the group mentioned today, I think that collaboration let us think outside the box and have different perspectives about how design can, how we can think on these fashion designs. And also in the idea of sustainability as a necessity, not just as an idea of what we can, how we can approach is a really necessity on what we have to think. Also how we can understand the bodies and the human beings as these elements that figure out how these luxury clothes are like are seen less as a product, but can be seen more as a need for a constant climate change or human necessity. The idea of the systems for me is so important, because I think that if we can see these like complete or complex bodies of as a product, we can rethinking on as very little or small parts that can construct a very complex body. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Maritza.
Oh, well, I got many inspiration today. And I think that this talk bring me a lot of thoughts that I'm writing and couldn't stop writing. But as a summary, I would say that every role matters. Every collaboration that we do in fashion design, scientists, architects, fashion designers, every expert could collaborate together, and especially if they are interested in fashion, it could bring us very creative new fashion design concepts, and then bring it up to the to reality when we need it. But in order to be less contaminated, less pollutant, more environmental friendly with our earth, probably it would be a way that we can maybe bring out together, customize for everybody, for every person in this earth. And that's why I believe that everything that I've seen in these projects, especially I thank you guys for sharing your projects, because I believe that the way that we create with 3D printing or robotics, or even as I am doing concept design at the moment, I feel that that brings us not just personal projects, as Haneen was sharing in the beginning, or Siyun was creating a new concept of digital fashion. I feel that these ideas brought all together could bring something really important, which is commitment with the future fashion. And at the moment, I just thought about, oh, it's just not aesthetics, because at the beginning it was more for me related to aesthetics. And now I think, no, it has to be something more committed to our future, what's going to be less pollution, as I was saying, or less impactful for our earth. So I bring that, like being more responsible with what we create, and whenever we try to bring into reality, just pick the good tools, like the friendly environmental materials, and make it real, but responsibly.
Thank you so much.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to hear,
Yeah.
Neil, before we wrap up, can you give us your thoughts
Yeah.
on what you heard today?
Thank you. Thanks, Gustavo, and thank you, Daniela, for curating this session, which has been really enlightening. I when you talk about the future, well, the future's here. We're looking at the future now, and one of the things that really strikes me is, I mean, you can see people when you've been teaching, you can see the kind of the future leaders already appearing. When I was at the AA, you could see Neri, you could see Akim Menges, you could see what potential they were going to bring, and I see the same today. I see other kind of potential Neri Oxpens and Akim Menges and so on, and whatever, Philip Beasley's, Iris van Herpens and so on. I think that it's important to sort of recognize that actually the future, I mean, in a sense, everyone's completely deterritorialized today. I mean, deterritorialized in terms of disciplines, in terms of geography, in terms of intellectual ways of thinking, in terms of the physical and the virtual. It's a very kind of hybrid, deterritorialized, Deleuzian kind of rhizomatic sort of world. But I think also the future, the present, and the past are themselves connected sometimes in ways we don't think. There's an expression that you probably heard before: tomorrow, today will be yesterday, which is really kind of important to say that, and what we're looking at now is the future, or indeed maybe the future perfect, or what will have been in the future. We are going to see out of you guys, I'm sure, some real contributions in whatever domain over the years. So, I think one of the things that the word future is written into digital futures, right? And one of the concerns is for us to kind of support the young, support those who are kind of have got all this potential. And just in terms of sustainability, I think one of the important things that we've discovered is that you don't have to sort of travel all over the world to go and find out about these things, but you can go online and share these ideas. And that's really the important thing, because it's not just about sustainability, it's also about economics, because not everyone can afford to come and study in London or New York or whatever, and Anyway, I'm just left with this this kind of overarching kind of this really strong sense of don't worry, the future is in good hands here. We've got talent is here, and you know, I just look forward to seeing how you progress. You know, as a theorist, you have to have a nose for ideas that are coming out, but also as a curator and editor, you've got to have a nose for talent, and talent is very obvious when you see it emerging. So I look forward to the future. The future's in good hands. So thank you for this really ravishing display of work. I mean, it really full of promise. So let's just see what it brings in the future. But thank you, and thank you also to the Digital Futures team, all the work that goes behind this. You can't believe how much work goes behind all this, and it's all done by people who are giving their time for free, which is an astonishing thing. You know, sharing their passion about design, and thank you for sharing your passions today about design. It was really one of my best sessions. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Daniela, before we go, I think I want to give you the last word since you organized and really put a lot of time. Digital Futures thanks you for taking on the responsibility to curate. What are your thoughts, and what do you think we should do next, and who should we invite?
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I was really inspired by all of your work. And of course, on behalf of Digital Futures team, and I believe our community, thank you so much for your generosity of sharing your work, your creativity, your talent. It was very inspiring for me. I take a lot of lessons from today, rather that fashion can contribute to other areas. We can all work together and have a broader vision of the future. So thank you for that. Thank you, Gustavo, for the help that he gave me on this session. And thank you, Neil, for coming to this session and your contribution. And that's it. I think we will see you on our next talks, I hope. And have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, well, before we go, we do have talks next week. Neil, he's working on a doctoral consortium courses. So please tell all your friends that we're here. Happy 2023. And thanks everyone for coming. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everyone. And the Digital Futures team. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, team. Thank you, presenters.
Thank you. Bye.